All right, so can anybody tell me what we call this model? This is a quick quiz without the Kahoot. What's this model called from Made to Stick? Oh, success. Kaylee had a little bit of, oh, Tina got it too. Kaylee had a little bit of preparation time because she is on the planning committee. So the success model, which of course I bring up because I'm going to talk about the conference, but I do want to add that at the very beginning, before folks have come on, John Lind was talking about how he does his work out of a yurt in his backyard and how the yurt, creates room for other things to happen in the house. And he talked about a puzzle, one of those puzzles that you move around. I don't know what they're called, slide puzzles. And you have to have an open piece in order to move, and how him being outside the house and the yurt made for an open piece. And I said, that is great concreteness, right? You just gave it in a concrete way. Everyone can picture it. That really helps. So I am seeing the world from a success model now. Hopefully, as you're reading the book Made to Stick, you will too. So a little bit about the SPDIG National Meeting. I just created a video. It is not a great video. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I'm not saying it's a great video, but if you want to get this information again, and don't want to watch the recording of today's webinar for some reason, or if someone isn't here and you just want them to learn about the conference, please go ahead and use that for now. And we'll be creating a few other videos as we go along in order to prepare people. Oh, I did not mean to open that up. I don't want to see myself. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. But I do want to give you the link. And that's what I sound like in the video. Raise your hand if you actually enjoy hearing yourself in video, because I do not, even though we ask all those teachers to. Okay, there's the recording. So it just gives you the kind of the basics of the agenda and what we're doing and why we're doing it and how to prepare. But here is that in a nutshell. If you haven't already ordered Made to Stick, please do so. It is a fast, easy book. I just heard from 2 people today, national TA providers, how much they loved the book, how they're using ideas in it already. They got through it over Christmas break because I'd mentioned it to them. So I think it's pretty easy. It's easy read. It's a fun read. I can't wait to hear what people get out of it. Please also start preparing your SPDIG's core message and elevator pitch. A core message is something that describes the essence of what your project is trying to accomplish. So it's a phrase, a sentence that is in essence what you are as a project, what you are as a SPDIG. The elevator pitch, we're asking you to tell the story of what you're doing to a specific audience that has been harder for you to reach. So for example, you've had a hard time reaching district superintendents. Create your elevator pitch with them in mind. If they're anything like the district superintendents in Oregon, you have exactly 1 minute to present that information before they start drilling you with questions. So be thinking about the audience, be thinking about how to describe your project in a way that's going to grab their attention, help them understand what you're doing, and help them remember what you're doing. And then also be thinking about who you want to attend the conference with you, even though they might not be in the same room with you. So your IHE partners, your university partners, or maybe universities you'd like to work with in the future. It doesn't cost us anything extra for those folks to join. And if it's something that will help you build relationship and or shared understanding of what you're doing, it's great. Your family engagement partners, including your Parent Training and Information Center or Community Parent Resource Center partners. So those are OSEP funded parent program centers. And then also other local program partners. So we are very open to who you want to bring, but you will have, because you will have team time while you're there, and it will be great to be able to work with them on some of the topics and also attend the sessions and learn alongside you. All right. Any questions about what I've shared so far about the upcoming national meeting? And I should change this. We were talking about the issue with the fact that we're going to have 2 national meetings in 2023, one virtual one and one in person in October. And this is because we pushed back the 2022 to a time a little further away from our summer program area meeting. So we recognize that confusion, but we will be having those 2 meetings. So any questions about this? All right. So as you know, we've been doing interviews with projects for our directors webinar, I'd say for the last 6 months. We've been bringing project directors from different SPDIGs in. We've been having conversations with them. I've been interviewing them and you've been asking them questions. So we're going to continue that today with Kim St. Martin of Michigan. We've also been learning about innovative strategies and technologies that might be useful for your SPDIG. And today the innovative strategy is going to be related to coaching. I talked about the virtual national meeting, February 8th and 9th. We are asking that people block off their schedules from 11 to 4 Eastern each day and not answer emails during the times that there's content. I attended a session for the Utah SPDIG, and their speaker, his name will come to me, he's a famous national speaker, and he was talking about how inefficient it is to answer email all day long. And it's better to just do it at one sitting and get it all done. And that, it's kind of that like squirrel. So it's not great for us and it takes us out of the room, right? Especially when we're doing so much virtually, can be harder to be in the room. And then that's another way that we're taken out. And so we're asking you to treat this like it's an in-person meeting in terms of giving it your full attention when we have the sessions going and planning to have an out of office on. And we're actually going to give you some fun language that you can use for your out of office message if you would like, no requirement, but with the idea that you will actually be there. We have our various working groups up and running. We have a communications group. This is going to test my memory. We have communications, Native American working group, team functioning. I am going to be forgetting the rest of them. I'll look at in just a second. It's not, the MTSS community of practice, which we're talking to certain universities, and I'm forgetting too. It'll come to me. Modules, thank you. The synchronous and asynchronous. And then there's one more. Someone's going to remember for me while we're thinking. Shorthand support. So shorthand is a way that you can communicate things that creates a product for you. So our newsletter, you'll see the December SIG Network newsletter. You can see a link there. The newsletter is created using shorthand. So Kelsey creates that on shorthand. We have a license that anyone can use, and Kelsey will help train you. In addition, we have support from shorthand. So it makes really pretty products that you can put on your website, that you can send out in a newsletter, you can send out in other ways. So that's something to think about. We want to help you with your communications. We always have mentors available, whether you be a program evaluator or project staff, we can connect those with you. And there's also something about that in the registration, and I think potentially the proposal links. Please be thinking about what you want to propose to share. I'm going to share the website right now, what it looks like, the page for this. And in that video, it also talks about proposals. So you can find out about 2 different ways. Even if you're just getting started, I think it's an important, you might have something important to share. So I'll get into the agenda and that'll help. So if you go to signetwork.org and then you go to events and then you choose SPDIG National Meetings, and here, and then you choose the 2023 to get to the agenda. And then from here, you can see you can use this link to propose something and then get to the agenda there. This talks about how to prepare, again, reading made to stick. There's this Heath Brothers resource page that will help you create an elevator pitch. It will help you create a presentation. They also have a video that might be useful for you. Again, the call for proposals and then the people to consider. So here's another place that you can also get that information. So the call for proposals is pretty easy to respond to. It talks about the category. So 15 plus 15, that's if you have a resource to present in even if you're a new project, you might have a great resource. You might have a great fidelity assessment or a great set of questions that you ask, or a great communication that you use with families. It could be a million things, but you just have 15 minutes to present that and 15 minutes for questions and discussion. Forum is a normal presentation, except for we're asking you to use the Made to Stick resource that helps you make great presentations. You can do it any topic you want that has to do with this SPDIG. And then the podcast playlist is just a quick recording, 15 minutes or less, that tells some story related to your SPDIG. So you're just really getting into a good description of one thing or kind of a group of things that you're doing as a SPDIG. There's a very easy Qualtrics forum that Kelsey and John put together that gives us all the data we need, but we are also here to help you if you want us to walk you through any of those parts. The agenda, I'm going to go through quickly because we want a lot of time with Kim and then Julie. So this is still a draft agenda, but gives you the overall idea. So we want to push boundaries, break barriers, and improve results for children with disabilities as a result of our time together. I'm going to help you make connections and tell your story in a way that assists with recruitment, uptake, and spread. And we want to help you provide professional development that's effective and makes a lasting impression. So you see, we have a pre-session, one on shorthand if you want to learn more about that, one if folks are new to the conference that I'll get them set up. And then I am here. We're going to talk about some want ads, so some areas of need that someone else might be able to help you with in SIG network world. And then 9 whys. Why is the topic that we're approaching with Made to Stick, why is that important to you? And the success model, we're going to have a bingo sheet for that, which is fun. Our speaker is, actually, I can add her name here, Anne Handley. She's the author of Everybody Writes, which is a Wall Street Journal best-selling book. And I think it's a terrific book. I've been reading that as well. But I think she has a lot to say. She's in the marketing world, and she's going to help you market your work to possible participants and those that will support it in your state. We're going to talk about your core statement and your elevator speech. You're going to meet together as a state team, and then you also get to meet with one other state team to talk about your core statements and elevator speeches. At lunchtime, you'll have a chance to respond to your emails or respond to want ads. And then unexpected is going to be the forum. So as you're presenting your information, you'll have one aspect of unexpected in it, along with all the other information you have to give. The concrete is that 15 plus 15, which I've already talked about. Then after the day ends, after 4 o'clock, we're going to have role-alike Zoom lounges so you can be with your people. And then day 2, February 9th, Credible is going to be Drs. Patty Noonan and Amy Gomer Erickson, and the title of their presentation is Believe Me When I Tell You. So it's all about credibility for your SPDIG initiative and yourself with professional learning. The Conversation Cafe is all about stories related to the topics of sustainability, fidelity, team functioning, family engagement, staff turnover, and getting evidence-based practices into use. We have the podcast playlist available to people for half an hour to listen to and after that. And then we have 2 presenters talking about emotional, connecting with your audience. So these are national TA providers. Then some more team time about how you apply that to your work. We're going to see who won in bingo and how your why, how you've lived into your why, hopefully in the 2 days. And then we're going to present the SIG Network Leadership Award. So questions about the agenda and the conference. Doug Reeves, thanks, Sid. Doug Reeves was the speaker that talked about how inefficient it is to respond to your emails all the time. All right, so thank you for hanging with me. I want to make sure everyone's prepared for that conference. And I want to bring on stage Kim St. Martin, who is actually next to me. But John, I don't know if you need to pin her or not. I'm not that Zoom proficient. But Kim, thank you so much for being willing to share your wisdom that you've gained over time and the knowledge of coaching and other matters. And I was hoping you could introduce yourself using our 4 H's.
Well, so I'm not as familiar with the 4 H's.
History. I'm going to walk you through it. History is first.
Okay. So, so my name is Kim St. Martin. I'm actually the director. So this is new. I'm the new director of our TA Center. So you guys all may know Steve Goodman, who retired. I'm going to say retired in air quotes, because he's still like traveling all over the world doing presentations. So he's not really retired, but Steve Goodman. So I'm the new director effective July 1st. And in terms of my history, I'm a former principal. I'm a former elementary school principal. I'm a New Yorker, and we do say elementary, so I will own that. I haven't been able to change it, but I just a bit of history about me. So I was a principal and participated in Michigan's first SPDIG, when we used to be called Michigan's Integrated Behavior Learning Support Initiative. So I actually go all the way back as an end user of the work in the SPDIG, and have the gift of being able to learn from each SPDIG over time. So what's the next one? The next H?
Hero.
My hero. Oh God.
You have to choose one. It doesn't mean that's your only hero, but for now you're going to talk about one, if that helps.
My hero. Well, okay. I'm gonna give a current hero. My current hero is, I think, Emily Hanford, whose reporting has been so instrumental in really shaping the conversation around scientifically based reading research. So that's my current hero, Emily Hanford.
Great. That's quick. And I'm going to put a link in. And then the next one is heartbreak.
Heartbreak is continue to see the number of kids who aren't able to read, continue to see kids who just are still experiencing a lot of trauma, and as the result of the pandemic. So that to me is a heartbreak.
And hope is the final one.
Well, I believe that this new SPDIG is I'm hopeful that we're going to hit the mark in figuring out the right amount of district leadership supports and classroom supports to move the needle on accelerating literacy and social emotional behavior outcomes.
Excellent. Thanks. That was, you did for the success model. I think you did the simplicity aspect of it. So the 4 H's connect with the emotion and sometimes the story, but you really kept it like simple. And I think that's great. That's a good model. And by the way, we're going to be rolling out a new way of introducing people at this next conference. So, get excited, drum roll. So Kim, thank you. Maybe I just get excited about these things. I have no idea. Kim, thank you for being willing, like I said, to come. And I know a lot of people are excited to hear from you. And it's been a few years since you stood on stage in person and talked about, I think it was systems coaching, right?
Yeah, it was a coaching system. It was the same topic, but so, fast forward a couple of years and we'll talk about some new advancements.
Yeah, good. So as I said, the setup we're going to do today is a little different than we've done some of the times, except for Laura Brown, is that we're going to do an interview portion, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kim to get in depth on the topic of how Michigan is creating their coaching system now. And Julie Morrison will also be speaking with us. And Julie, it's good to see you. Longtime program evaluator for various states, and but she'll be speaking about Michigan. All right, so Kim, I've done a lot of previewing of this topic. How have you changed your current SPDIG, and why? And what are some of the data that you think are especially important that people look at as they think about how they can evolve?
So in Michigan, we have had the gift of, we're on our 4th SPDIG award. And so every SPDIG that we've, reapplied for, we've revised it based on the data from the previous SPDIG. And so, from our 2017 SPDIG award, the emphasis was more district implementation infrastructure, still focused on an integrated reading and behavior MTSS framework. But frankly, we weren't seeing the impact on student outcomes. We saw tremendous impact on district implementation infrastructure, district capacity assessment scores went up, but we weren't necessarily seeing that translate into improved student outcomes. And so based on the data that we've compiled, and I love that Julie's here with me because she's our external evaluator. She's going to keep me honest with the data. We really did say, okay, we've got to get closer to kids. And so this SPDIG still keeps the district implementation infrastructure component, but we've actually gone to a preschool elementary SPDIG, and it is focused on more professional learning and training of educators in SEB school mental health and literacy practices, and coaching grade level teams, working on intensifying intervention supports, and kind of feeding that up to the district infrastructure. So more getting closer to kids. That's the theme of the current SPDIG based on our lessons learned.
And are you seeing benefits so far? I know it's early days.
Well, I mean, we just got the award like the end of September, and so we're in the process.
That's true.
Yeah, we're in the process right now. It's a little recent, but what I will say is that, one of the questions, and I know Jennifer, if you're going to ask it, or if I'll connect it with, when you talk about planning, when you ask about planning for sustainability from the beginning, even though we haven't started this SPDIG, our emphasis on intensifying instruction, we actually had the gift for the past year and a half of testing out a model demonstration on intensifying literacy instruction. And our preliminary, and that's built into our state systemic improvement plan. So when we look at the impact of first and second graders who are accessing intervention supports, and we apply database individualization to the intervention supports, we actually saw that 64% of those students who accessed intervention made progress. And the baseline data from these 3 elementary schools in the district that was a SPDIG partner in our SPDIG 2017 award, their baseline data was 0%. So we really did see right from the beginning that that piece of this new SPDIG has already yielded outcomes.
That's wonderful. So glad. The question was, we had got a question, how did you measure progress?
So we're actually looking at Acadience data. That's the Universal Screener Progress Monitoring System. And we have, we're actually using individual student progress monitoring data. So based on their, there's 3 ways in which they can make progress. One is meeting their end of year goal. Another is having, from an intensification, having data points above their aim line. So I mean, there's kind of a decision tree, Karen, that I can certainly share with you, but it's individual kid data, which does make it more complicated from a state perspective, from an ESSET perspective. Not a lot of people use state assessment data, which is not sensitive enough to really look at the changes needed for students, especially students with disabilities.
So the question follow-up was, so you used pathways of progress.
That was one of the pieces, but not the only piece. I mean, we looked at end of year, making their end of year goal, their rate of improvement through the pathways is another, and the number of data points post an intensification.
Thanks, Kim. Didn't mean to take up your time.
No, Karen, don't worry about it. This is great. I actually love the interaction. My biggest fear is that everyone's just going to be staring at me. So no, I love it. Love it.
No, I'm just, my ears perked right up, because what you just described about your SPDIG is exactly, as you probably are aware, what happened in Ohio. We did not see the student outcomes. And obviously that's where we want it to get. And as you pointed out, we think we saw progress in infrastructures and all these other pieces, but we've got to get it to the students.
Bingo. You're right. You're right, my friend. Yeah.
So that's why when you said we measured progress, I was like, okay, how do we do that? I want to get that, because I'm very familiar with Acadience and all of that. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, everyone, and I want to say everyone should feel free asking questions. One of the great things about these interviews is that it's not like this is the only time we have access to Kim. She's part of the group, right? And
Yeah.
so we can continue the conversation. We got time for all of it. One thing I did want to mention too, you just made me think about it. Both of you did. When the SIP was a lot newer, the State Systemic Improvement Plan, and states were choosing their SIMR, State Identified Measurable Result. I was so proud because there was a state that had a SPDIG, a long time SPDIG, and they proposed and were approved to use the kinds of measures that you're talking about, Kim. Not exactly the same, it was a while ago. Because of that idea that, you know, this statewide assessment data, and now we've seen with COVID, you know, lots of states don't have it, or, you know, it's like, it's just not, there's no trend, there's no, you know, they're missing a lot of things. So that's really great. Okay, so we've got a Menti up, and John, is there a direct link that we should use for the Menti too? Does it give you a direct link? Or do people not need it, maybe?
Sorry, I was looking for one while Kim and you were talking, and I didn't see one. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
in the chat pod, I put menti.com, and then of course the code is 7131790.
Okay, thanks, John. And then Kristen has a question for you, Kim. Did you see it?
Yeah, yep, I do. So yes, we are going to continue using student level screening data. So, but I will say we just met with Anita Vermeer, who's our project officer for our monthly check-in meeting. We're actually going to expand the universal screening assessments beyond Acadians. So we wrote into the SPDIG 2022 application Acadians. This SPDIG, we are prioritizing districts who have been ESSA identified for support, and there are districts that need support, need pretty significant support, who aren't in a position to potentially change their universal screener. So they could be using AIMSweb or FastBridge or DIBELS 8th edition. So those are the other screening assessments that we're going to use. The caveat is that we have measures around the foundation skills, there's reliability and validity. And so that will be a new piece. We've historically always supported DIBELS Next, or now Acadians, and this is the first year we're expanding beyond that. New information for you, Julie, that just came about last week when we met with FYI.
This is how we communicate with our teams, our SPDIG teams, right? Okay, gotta thank you. Good. So anything else that brought up for you, Kim, when it comes to what helped you to improve the new SPDIG, what data has been important to you?
Yeah, I mean, the new, you know, getting to the kids, to student outcomes was the biggest catalyst for why we wanted to, like, a lesson learned, because historically our SPDIGs have been 4-year collaborations with SPDIG recipients. And I'm just going to be very honest, and I mean this, I'm going to say this with the utmost respect. Sometimes by the 4th year, it almost felt like a forced relationship, almost like two people who really wanted to separate, but didn't know how to you know, who's going to actually separate, because we had either administrators who left, central office who left. And so by the end of like the 3rd and 4th year, it was just too much to continue to sustain. And so we've reduced the partnership down to 3 years. And our scope of work, we're actually going to provide more agency, give the districts more agency and voice in identifying their elementary grade levels. So it's a preschool elementary application. We are prioritizing K2 from the elementary grades. But if a district says we want this K5, for example, they absolutely would have the ability to help shape that. And all of our professional learning is going to be done virtually. It's going to be done at the time and space that is approved by superintendents and leaders. So it could be after school, could be during release time. So some of the lessons that we've learned is just how long of a partnership is too long. how do we get closer to kids, and how do we give districts more choice and have this be more of a co-design opportunity, as opposed to saying, here you go, here's like 4 years of professional learning that we want your teachers and staff to engage in.
Great. And I feel like that's coming up more and more, that code. I mean, which is it's fascinating. Mary Morningstar, some of you might know, because she's been in our field for a while. She's done really good work. But she brought a question to me as SIG Network for the SPDIG. She was talking about an evidence-based TA framework or professional development framework. And she had found this document created in, I think it was in the Regional Education Laboratory by one of them. And it was still really good for the most part. And it was funny that I'd never seen it, but it talked about that idea of whoever you're going to be, it's not, providing professional development too, that to work with them in creating what that professional development is going to look like for them. And maybe many of you are doing this, I don't know, but it's not something I've talked about a lot. But as we think more and more about autonomy and voice, what that looks like from the very beginning. So any thoughts that you could share about that, Kim?
Well, within our TA Center, we really have fully embraced the implementation science research. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to own how dorky I am when it comes to implementation. I do own 2 t-shirts. One is the implementation drivers. I've got that t-shirt. I've got the stages of implementation planning tool t-shirt that has the stages on the back, and it's got implementation stages planning tool on the front. So I'm just, I do that to say, I don't know. If you're really invested in implementation science, I think you need some swag. I'm just going to put it out there. Some implementation science swag. But one of the systems coaching competencies from an implementation science lens actually is design and co-creation. And so when we think of, kind of those systems coaching competencies that we want to attend to and focusing on implementation, what has to do with a set of pieces around facilitating people through the change process. So the only thing that I would say the only thing in addition I would say is that this idea of co-creation, which connects to the formula for success, the active implementation formula of effective practices multiplied by effective implementation, multiplied by enabling context equals socially significant outcomes. Enabling context and co-creation really do go together. And so as SPDIG grantees, there is an opportunity for us to think about the enabling context. And the districts and schools that we work with, they are the experts in their own enabling context. And I think that the more we can emphasize that and really honor that, I think the stronger the collaboration will be from the get-go. Oh, and Sydney, you're nerding out with me. You love it. Yep. And I said, Stacy and Mary, yes. The implementation science swag. Yep.
Yeah. And good news for those of you who always feel like you could learn more or have people you want to learn more about implementation science is the newest iteration of CSEP. That is one of the main areas of work, is they're going to be creating micro-credentials for implementation science. So anybody can get trained to a point at least. All right, so we got some responses for direct training and coaching to personnel who work with children. I like that we are. I thought that was one of the requirements of SPDIG. So I think the question there is more of a requirement now that the training and coaching is, or at the very least, you're assessing fidelity of the intervention. So it's what's reaching the child, but that is newer in the last couple of years. And so at a certain point especially with MTSS, there was a lot of just district work, which, it's like we had learned that we needed to support the district. So we went to the district, and then we also know we need to support on the ground what Kim is talking about. And so so that's, we're talking about those different levels of the education system and supporting all those different levels. And I think the hope at one point, and Kim intimated this or said it, was that if you help the district, they're going to be able to help the school, everything will be okay. And it hasn't always ended up that way. The trickle down, right? Kim, am I saying that correctly?
No, you're exactly right. I mean, our very first SPDIG back in 2003, I think it was focused at the school level. And then our second SPDIG, because of sustainability issues, was focused at the regional education agency level. And that didn't really work. It didn't get the reach or the spread to other kids. So the third SPDIG was, let's go in the middle. Let's hit the district and let's see if the structure can support the teachers and staff. And that didn't hit the mark. But this fourth SPDIG is like, okay, let's do bottom up and top down, and let's really try to hit that. And so the teams, so when we think about who are the receivers of the learning, there are implementation teams. Any team that we're going to work with should function as an implementation team, right? They're attending to, coordinating the work of the evidence-based practices. The implementation teams they're the target, the focus of the SPDIG is a multidisciplinary team. I'm going to start at the individual kid level. This team is going to focus on the advanced tiers, intervention access, and effectiveness. It's the grade level teams, or my Ohio colleagues, the TBTs, the teacher-based teams, that are going to need to collaborate together, look at their grade level data and say, how do we meaningfully implement, in this case, our reading curriculum resources, our social emotional behavior supports, SEL curriculum. And then we've got the school leadership team or building leadership team and a district team. So the implementation teams are those teams that I had just said. I will tell you though, that what we are prepared for in this SPDIG, given the load of professional learning that they're going to get, we are going to start talking to districts about, do you have other teams in the schools? Let's do an audit of the teams in the schools, because I'm very cautious of everything falling on the building leadership teams or the school leadership teams. Everything seems to go on that group. And it's like the way, and I'm seeing some head nods, like, Veronica and others. And I think we have to be careful about how much cognitive load we're putting on one team. And so there's going to be, in our conversations, our readiness conversations with districts, this is another example of agency, co-creation, voice. We're going to talk to them about, is it the school leadership team, or are you going to form like an innovation initiative practice-based team? So it could be like your SEB team that is going to be the people that are going to hold non-classroom and classroom implementation and supporting colleagues. But we've got to give districts and school leaders more understanding in what we really want the team to do. How do you function as an effective implementation team? And let's think about the shared distribution of leadership and responsibilities to engage in this work. I mean, I will say, for those of you who are geeking out on implementation science, if you've read the meta-analysis, Implementation Matters, this is back in 2008, shared leadership was one of the findings from the meta-analysis. It really had to do with enabling context, making sure that we're considering the context in which things are being implemented, coupled with shared distributed leadership across the school and the setting. And so, working with school leaders to audit their teams, figure out who can handle the load of the work that's happening relative to the other priorities in the school. That's something that we've got to have more co-creation and conversation about. It can't just be, oh, no, you got a school leadership team, they're the one that goes to everything. We've got to think about the load, the cognitive load on folks.
Excellent.
Oh,
And there's
Veronica, yes, Veronica. Okay, so yeah, we have the UP, the Upper Peninsula. I mean, you're right, we've got one room schoolhouses, so you're spot on, my friend. And so you're right about rural districts, because oftentimes it's fewer people who wear many hats, right? Like we have a superintendent who also drives a bus and serves lunch. So many hats, but that's a conversation about the pacing and what they can support, how much they can support, and consider the adjustment of the timeline. for that reason, our SPDIG is pretty laid out, 3-year partnership. But if we have other districts and schools, like small rural districts, that say, we can't really meet this in the timeline that you've spelled out within your SPDIG, we have other opportunities for people to access professional learning that would be able to give them an alternate path where they weren't necessarily being held to the same timeline. Now that I acknowledge that's a gift because of the fact that we are a state supported technical assistance center. But the advice that I have is just to consider who's doing what, how much can you actually handle at one point in time, and be willing to be flexible with the professional learning, when it is, how long it is, and work around the confines of the constraints of the district.
Great. And do you think Michigan has a really nicely laid out scope and sequence for your professional development for this SPDIG? Do you think that helps you in considering questions like this, like the different flavors of districts and who they have available to them?
Yeah, I will tell you, it's more complicated now. I mean, truly, if I showed you the spreadsheet, and there's a spreadsheet, I don't know, I don't want to overwhelm people, but from an MTSS lens, for those of you who have SPDIGs focus on MTSS, we actually are moving towards a bi-directional model. I mean, where we are going up the triangle and down the triangle at the same time. The traditional MTSS RTI models were start with tier 1, wait until that's ready, and then go to tier 2, and then go to tier 3. And frankly, we're losing kids. Like the truth is that schools are dealing with kids who need intervention supports right away, even though they're trying to manage tier 1. So we are starting in the very first year of the SPDIG, this new SPDIG, we actually help form the multidisciplinary teams and get the intervention work starting in year 1. And they start that work, they try out what they're developing with 1st and 2nd grade. The data that we gathered from our ESIP from last year shows us this can work. And again, this was a group that had they didn't even implement their new core reading curriculum. So they didn't have a robust tier 1 already in place. And they had baseline 0% of kids who received intervention made progress. And they still, by tackling tier 1 and the advanced tiers at the same time, they actually saw a tremendous amount of progress. So I really am pushing. When I say to get kids first, I really mean that, because we're gonna hit the advanced tiers right in year 1. And we're hitting tier 1 SEB at the classroom level in tier 1. And teachers are going to start letters training, which is already state funded, in tier 1 or in year 1. Or if they've already done it through state aid, they don't have to repeat it. But I guess the point I want to impress upon the group is, in the MTSS community, we have to think about this bi-directional model. We can't just go up the triangle.
Yeah. Thank you, Stacy. Feel like we never get out of working on tier 1. Let's get the kids first. Another
Bingo,
t-shirt
because you're
idea.
right, tier 1's never done. It's never done. And so we can't delay high quality access to intervention.
Yeah. Thank you. Julie's smiling. Julie, do you have a thought about that?
No, I just like the comment about, I think you have another t-shirt idea.
I didn't see that. Oh, that's a good idea. Yes, I'll get on it. I'm going to get on it.
And Meg, did you want to add anything?
I just, a lot of this is resonating with me. The Vermont MTSS framework has been a little bit different from the national framework, because we've been talking about this very thing for several years, where we recognize that while there needs to be an increasing intensity and type of instruction that we're calling intervention for students, the way we've been sort of, marching kids through isn't working. And we use the visual of the circles, and that sometimes works, but we call, right, and you can't do the intervention and ignore tier 1, and getting people to to realize that that core instruction is an intervention. Intervention is instruction. So we're really trying to change the way people think about what it means to have a high quality instruction and intervention system and focus on the system. And that's the purpose of this SPDIG in Vermont. And we're starting, we did the Part C thing. So we're trying to do birth through
Oh, good job.
elementary school. I grew up in the Midwest, so I say elementary.
But
But
we're gonna have a
what you're saying
revolution.
is resonating, and I'm really glad that the
Yeah.
conversation around an MTSS is transitioning so that it's not so regimented in tiers, but kids get what they need when they need it by the person who's best able to give them what they need. But the system has to be able to support that.
Yep.
Hopping
it's a-
off my soapbox, preaching to a choir, I know. Thanks.
So in Megan,
part of
just to let the group, Meg had asked if we're willing to share our SPDIG application. I said yes. So we're in the process of drafting that right now. And so
Oh, no. Yeah, and I mean, literally the application for districts or schools to apply.
well, that's what I was talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, okay.
Yeah. So that's being drafted right now in terms of how we're writing letters of agreement. So this community, we are always sharers. And so absolutely anything that I have is yours. Don't worry about it. You just ask.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and step off the stage, so to speak, and invite Julie Morrison to come in my place. We could talk forever about the overall Michigan SPDIG, but Kim and Julie are going to focus in on some aspects of their coaching, and that's the innovator practice for today that we're going to learn more about. That's still a conversation. I think I can speak for Kim and Julie when I say that they would love to hear your questions and ideas and what you're doing similarly. So that part doesn't change. I'm just not the interviewer anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and step off. Welcome, Julie. Do you want to share your 4 H's? And I can lead you through it. It's up to you.
I took note here. So my history is
Okay.
I'm a school psychologist by training. And after working in the schools for a number of years, I'm here at the university level. So I'm at the University of Cincinnati. But in graduate school, I started working in research and evaluation and just fell in love. So I've always had a particular interest in program evaluation and how that can inform decisions and improve outcomes for students. My hero. Last time I answered this question, it went very badly for me. So I'm not sure I can recoup yet. But in high school, we were asked to write a paper in my junior year of high school. I remember it very well, and about our hero. And one after another, a student got up and they talked about their grandma or their favorite aunt. And the teacher called on me and I got up to do my presentation on Gandhi. And the teacher made some comment like, only you would pick Gandhi. And I'm not sure why that was wrong to this day. So I guess it would be my grandma and Gandhi, because I can't say Gandhi only. Heartbreak I agree that economic disparities that were accentuated and revealed with the pandemic, economic and along racial lines is just devastating. And I see that, everywhere. And my hope, again, I'm very much aligned with the identity of an evaluator, is that I really think I have the greatest opportunity to affect positive change as a program evaluator, that in helping folks like you all look at the data and make good decisions in the interest of kids, that for me, is where my hopes are. So I hope I did okay.
I think it's hopeful that you brought up Gandhi when you were in school. I mean, what a great thing not to follow what every other kid in the class is saying. It doesn't feel great at the time, maybe, but I think all of us can appreciate that fact, right? And he continues to be a great man.
Yes.
All right. So like I said, I'm going to step off the stage and let Kim and Julie share what they're learning and some great resources. So I'm looking forward to hearing it too. Thanks, guys.
So, and Julie and I are also going to channel our colleague, Anna Harms, who is not, she's still on winter break right now with her kiddos. A lot of our kids in Michigan went to school all the way to the 23rd. And so like my kids are downstairs. No one's going to school till Monday. But we really are here to talk to you a little bit about our coaching system. So when I say coaching system, I want you to think about your organization, your state department, the people that you've hired within your SPDIG to support what you wrote, what you put in your application. Okay. So when I say coaching system, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about internal, how do you coach up the people that you work with to be able to fulfill the responsibilities that they are being asked to do, in this case, related to the SPDIG. So the purpose of a coaching system is to ensure, from my hat, that all of the people that work within the MyMTSS TA Center, that they possess the necessary knowledge and experience needed to be successful in their roles. And, the truth with our SPDIG is that, we're on our 4th SPDIG. It's changed every single time. And with each of those changes requires our key personnel that we put within the application to perhaps work with different people that they've never worked with before. Like a lot of my staff had never worked with superintendents directly. That required some training and coaching to get people comfortable to now interface with superintendents. Just one small example. So the purpose really is, how do you get the people that you've hired that are working to support the SPDIG to have the knowledge and experiences needed? So our coaching system timeline, when I came and talked to the SPDIG group several years ago, I think it was about 2018, 19, 2020. It was way back then where we began to conceptualize and co-construct with some of our TA Center staff this coaching system. Our target audience were the staff that we've hired, who were called implementation specialists. And the implementation specialists, they are providing, many of them provide professional learning and coaching to district implementation teams. So that's the level of the cascade that they enter into, district implementation team. They're providing professional learning and they're coaching the coordinator of that team, the executive leader of that team, which could be the superintendent. Like if I'm in the small rural district, it probably is the superintendent, could be an assistant superintendent. And so that's how this coaching system started. Fast forward to this school year, and we're now looking at expanding the coaching system to support coaching staff within the TA Center who are responsible for program evaluation. Anna Harms is our administrator over research and evaluation. Anna has 2 people within her unit of our technical assistance center. Both of them are not program evaluators by training. I mean, like I think you heard Julie say, look at her history. I think, Julie, you've said most people in program evaluation don't just, like, they kind of fall into the role, right? Is that fair what you had said?
Right. I was going to mention some of the data we collected. Some of you will remember on the heels of the last SPDIG national meeting in October 2021, we did a survey. And we had of those who are in the evaluation role within the SIG network, we had a pretty good response rate, just over half. And what we found was very consistent with, national results, which is only about 58% of the SPDIG evaluators were actually trained as evaluators in their graduate preparation. So there was a solid 42% that did not identify an advanced graduate preparation or any kind of degree or certificate in program evaluation or a related field. And that's pretty typical. There's a lot of what I call like accidental evaluators who have, strong research methodology background, perhaps in education or in the social sciences, but they weren't necessarily trained as evaluators. So they might not have some of those competencies in, navigating kind of the political waters of, in interpersonal skills of program evaluation. And then I also know people who are trained as like evaluators that really don't know the educational context. So they might propose things that teachers would never be willing to go for, or a principal might, put the kibosh on. So there is a skill set that is kind of unique to what we do in the SIG network that I think we all have room to develop competencies in.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. And so Julie, Anna, and I set out early this fall, I think it was September, to start to identify what are those coaching concepts, and Julie is the person who is coaching the two individuals within Anna Harm's unit to be able to kind of develop their program evaluation skills. So even though she's our neighbor in Ohio, she's our external evaluator, and we are also leveraging her to provide the direct coaching support for these people. The other area in which our technical assistance center's coaching system is expanding is to include actual coaching for people who are developing and delivering professional learning. I think that's another skill set that we all kind of fall upon, right? In the roles that we have, we're creating PowerPoints, we're providing professional learning, but I mean, it's hard. Like if someone were to say, what are those concepts that what are the concepts that need to be coached? If you're teaching someone how to develop high quality professional learning, what are those things? What are those actual things? And then how do you coach someone to deliver high quality professional learning? So that is new areas of focus within our coaching system this year. Okay, John, I see you've got a mentee poll going. Do you want to talk us through it? I think John just added the link. Who receives majority of the coaching services from your SPDIG? So I'm curious, are you coaching internal people?
Oh yeah, sorry. We didn't add program evaluators because we figured that was unlikely to be that.
Okay, we're seeing some folks that are saying teachers, other direct service providers, direct personnel. Yeah, we've got state personnel. And this is very common. I mean, when we think about, think about human resources and recruitment and selecting and supporting staff, right? Recruitment, selection, and retention of staff. How we onboard staff, what they do in the first week, the first month, and the first year, and how they're supported to be able to really be able to feel successful in their role requires organizations to think about the professional learning and the coaching. If I hold back up my implementation drivers, t-shirt here, we really are talking about the competency driver, right? And we've got to have selection, training, and then coaching. So coaching system is a way to create a structure so that it just doesn't happen by chance. It isn't just that someone happens to be working with a colleague in your SPDIG at your state department who happens to kind of take them under their wing and be able to say, here, let me help to show you, let me show you how to do this work. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now, John. So in terms of our internal TA center coaching system, so the overarching document, because, again, we're now pulling in the coaching for program evaluators, coaching for people who are developing and delivering professional learning, coaching supports for staff who are in an implementation specialist role. So they, in this case, are providing direct coaching to district implementation teams. It's causing us now to expand that coaching system to have an overarching document that outlines its purpose, what TA center are required, like what our staff's required professional learning looks like, given the roles that they're hired to do. And again, because of the competency driver, we can't forget about the importance of professional learning. But a lot of the states that I work with, when we work with districts and schools, people intertwine training and coaching, and they're not one and the same. And so we've got to think about professional learning, and coaching should be built upon the high quality training that people have received. So our internal TA center coaching system is going to outline the non-negotiables for staff required professional learning. And you're going to see in the document that Julie and I are going to share that Julie and Anna did an amazing job really thinking about initial professional learning that anyone learning how to be a program evaluator needs. We're going to give coaching guidelines. What are the conditions that warrant internal coaching? So for example, I could have been an implementation specialist, and then my role changed to being a professional learning specialist now. That would be a condition, a change of role with additional or different responsibilities would be a condition that warrants coaching. The people who are hired by the TA Center, who are considered internal to the TA Center, what's their role description as a coach? So what's expected of internal staff providing coaching? What skill sets do they need? What are their responsibilities? How are they recruited and selected to do that work? What's the supervision for those individuals? So the people who are providing internal coaching, who oversees the work that they're doing? Who are they checking in with? In addition, we then break into, well, what's the coaching service delivery plan look like? And that's where you get into some of the nuances, where program evaluation is one of the 4 areas that we are needing to really kind of figure out those concepts for coaching, along with the district implementation infrastructure. We have some implementation specialists who are helping regional education agencies like ESCs or intermediate school districts scale up MTSS. What do they need to be coached to be able to do? And the people who provide professional learning, which happens to be almost everyone in our TA center. There isn't really one person in our TA center who doesn't have some type of professional learning responsibilities. I may not be developing the content, but I could be training it. Or I may be developing and training content. So we all have these responsibilities. And then finally, we're including a section on coaching assignment decision rules. So what's the ratio for the internal staff that are coaching people within the TA center? How many people can they coach at once? And how are we looking at the effectiveness of the coaching? So these are all things that we're doing. To Jennifer's point, we very much do follow NERN's CSEP's coaching service delivery plan lesson that you can access through their AI hub. And thanks, Jennifer, for putting that in the chat. So some of the additional things that we would build out in the coaching service delivery plan would be things like the circumstances that would cause people to need to access or want coaching. How do we fade internal coaching supports? How do people ultimately exit internal coaching supports? And by exiting, it kind of then transitions out of coaching to consultative supports. And what are what's the progression of coaching? We refer to that as an implementation stage-based coaching approach. When we have people in like a program evaluator role, or someone who's working on understanding a district implementation infrastructure, there's some things they have to know how to do that are in the exploration stage. There's things that they have to know how to do that would be in the installation and implementation stages. And then we want the people like Julie who are coaching our internal staff to have some kind of a plan. What are they working on? Are you clear on what your goal is and how you're going to support folks? Now, Julie, Anna, and I, we're not there yet for a program evaluation. We just a few months ago teased out the coaching concepts and matched that to training. So my other staff who coach implementation specialists that are providing support around district implementation infrastructure, they're already using a coaching plan template. They actually have updated coaching plans and have data that they're collecting to guide the decisions around fading coaching supports and exiting coaching supports as well. So I just gave you one example of, for staff, like implementation specialists, that's their role, who are implementing a district implementation infrastructure. They need training in what these things are that are up here on the screen, and they need coaching to be able to make sure that they know how to do these things. And so this is for district implementation infrastructure. Now, I gave to John and Jennifer earlier, and I think, John, you're going to add this to the chat, the PDF of our program evaluation coaching concepts. And so this is kind of what I want to pass the baton to Julie, who can kind of walk through what we came up with. So Julie, if you want me to share, do you want me to share my screen?
That would be great.
I will do that. So let me just pull them up. All
And
right.
really, I want to make very clear that 95% of the credit goes to Kim with another, I guess we add up over 100%, but another big portion goes to Anna Harms for really identifying the core content that she, in leading the research and evaluation unit, recognized that her colleagues really needed to develop. So I can take very little credit other than to try to faithfully take the structure here that Kim developed with Anna's help and massage it a little bit so that it would fit within what, recommend foundational content for program evaluation, pulling from the program evaluation standards, the 2018 AEA evaluator competencies, and then also making sure we had, the ethics in, but then also knowing the my MTSS Technical Assistance Center model and making sure that the evaluators were, very well equipped to support the project, which is unique to our SPDIG funded project. So, this identifies kind of the exploration or novice evaluator professional learning focus, really understanding MTSS and the my MTSS Technical Assistance Center supports those foundational content areas. The Kellogg Foundation 3-part is on using evaluation in the service of racial equity. It's an excellent series that just came out last fall. It's 3 guidebooks, but there was also an accompanying webinar. Making sure they know Gusky, also pulling from, I think, Anna and my book on program evaluation, which is heavily influenced by the SIG network. And logic modeling is something that, a lot of folks don't get in graduate school unless they're in an evaluation preparation program. So making sure they understand logic modeling and how that can be used both for project design and evaluation, writing SMARTY goals, developing evaluation data collection plans, assessment schedules, analysis plans, really developing evaluation questions, and then being able to respond to a new request for application. So for the folks I'm coaching right now, we've met once, but I was able to identify a homework assignment and had a very small grant, a district level grant that was successfully funded. And it was a little bit different than what my MTSS is focused on. It was more of a mental health project, suicide and threat assessment. And so I gave that to them and just asked them to kind of read this 19-page grant and identify the outputs and the outcomes. So just kind of baby step demonstration, modeling, and walking them through, how would you approach a new grant proposal if you were asked to develop an evaluation plan for it? Communication is, of course, a very big piece of what we do. And then, the coaching foundations. We did have them look at now I'm going blank on, was it AEA's, it was called Evaluation One-on-One, AEA's American Evaluation Association. And what we heard back was it was very heavily influenced by public health. The Center for Disease Control, I think, were partners in developing that, like 101 evaluation series. And so, you know, they said it was good, but it maybe wasn't as relevant to what the work we're doing. And it might be something that we could cycle back to after we've had a little bit more, you know, coaching in program evaluation within this SPDIG work.
And Julie, and just to point at the bottom of the PDF that you guys have, Anna linked up a lot of the resources that we were referring to. So you can see at the bottom of my screen here, you can see some of the things that influenced, you know, their documents and whatnot that are referenced within here. And now, Julie, I know you guys are only in the professional learning component, but you did build out, like, so how would you teach the program evaluators to move into installation? You want to talk a little bit about some of those things that would be the area of focus for them?
Let me catch up here. The co-design of an evaluation plan that I don't think a lot of people get that in graduate school. So even people who are working as evaluators, there's a lot of on-the-job learning and feedback that you get where you really are honing those skills, and you're doing it co-design, so co-creation. So you can't do it in isolation. You can't develop those skills from a textbook. So it's really those direct experiences that are most helpful. Managing program evaluation, you know, we're all busy people, so there's a lot involved in just time management, task management, what things have to come first, second. We all live by the SPDIG reporting time period ending February 28th or 29th. I'm seeing more of that. You know, another thing is the communication, which I see bolded. You all might be surprised to learn that people who are well steeped in research aren't always the best at presenting their research in a way that doesn't come off as academic, like a lecture. And so really being able to be conversational and having a message that sticks, but you know, so that it does invite co-participation and not, you know, one person saying, well, this is what we need to do.
Right. So you know, our goal today really was to say, all right, how are we taking an innovative practice, you know, something like coaching, which we know is important. Although I will say, I mean, when we look at the meta-analysis on coaching, we've got a lot of evidence that says coaching can change teacher practice. But when you look at the effect size for improvements in student outcomes, not necessarily the case. But I do stand by the fact, again, my hero, Emily Hanford, you can teach people and coach people to implement non-evidence-based practices, actually scientifically invalid practices. So we couldn't then expect to see improvements in student outcomes. So the quality of the practice makes a difference. The big idea that Julie and I wanted to talk to you about is that you know, we're trying to get very serious as a TA center about how to build the internal skills and experiences of staff so that people feel successful and being able to do what they're being asked to do. And I think that that's just fair to people. I think that it increases your job satisfaction. I think it just increases the ability to have more shared voice and perspective across the, you know, the organization or the space in which you're working. And we promise to come back with Anna, with our colleague, and share our updates, not only for the program evaluation coaching pieces, but we're going to have coaching concepts for professional learning, you know, content development and content delivery as well. So I would love to, you know, share with you whatever we come up with, you know, just it's whatever's ours is yours. So. any thoughts or questions or reactions? Anyone want to, I know I've seen some things in the chat. Anyone want to share anything? Or any more t-shirt ideas? I mean, I love the last idea with the bi-directional model.
Kim, maybe while people are thinking about things to share, I've got a Menti that I could put up, and that's what area of coaching do you feel strongest and why?
I love it.
And what
Yes.
area of coaching do you feel needs more focus?
Go for it, my friend. Have at it.
Obviously everyone, but that is for your SPDIG. What area of coaching do you feel is strongest? Not for Michigan SPDIG. They'll make their own assessment.
Yes.
Yes.
And of course, while people are thinking or responding to the Menti, any questions or comments that you have outside of this Menti that's showing, feel free to respond to by unmuting your microphones and asking directly to Kim or Julie.
I want to say I felt like a theme today from when we were in conversation, Kim, and then also as Julie joined us. The theme really seems to be that
Co-creation.
co-creation. Thank you very much. Which and is that a module yet from NERD?
Oh,
Or is
that's a
that
good
coming?
question. I mean, so I don't know. I'm sure it's coming. I mean, I know, and
Yeah.
I did one of the podcasts that I think is happening for their credentialing system. I think it's coming, but yeah, it's really important. And I don't think we talk enough about it in the spaces in which we're working. I really don't.
Yeah,
One
there is a peep. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the need for us as a TA center to really think about in expanding our coaching system is, so we have several federal, I mean, we have the School Climate Transformation Grant. We have other grants that fund our TA center. The School Climate Transformation Grant funds are going away. And, we don't have the ability to continue to hire, continue to just hire and hire more people. We have to use the people that we have. The reality, though, is we have folks that were hired for some positions that just don't even exist anymore. Like we used to have an equity pilot that was built into the SPDIG 2017. We had people that were hired to specifically coach schools that were part of that equity pilot. They're now moving into professional learning specialist roles. And they're like, I'm not really sure how, no one's ever worked with me on developing content. And so the need to really think about, I mean, the only way we are able to have a sustainable way to address the capacity and staffing need is to have an internal coaching system, because you have to use the human capital that you have, right? And it is only fair to people to support them because they were hired in a certain role. They're committed and invested to the work that we do as a TA center. But then when you put them in a different role that they have had no support in, it's just unfair to them. And what sometimes happens historically that I've seen over time in different organizations, I'm not going to say it's just us, but then you have people that aren't necessarily utilized as much. It tends to be the same people who are really good at developing content, who do the lion's share of the work. And then you start to just have people that are saying, well, what are my contributions in the organization? And so I'm historically in some of the interviews you've done with SPDIGs, you've said, how do you align with state initiatives? We align all of our work with state initiatives. I mean, this current SPDIG is what our ESSIP is in. It aligns with our dyslexia handbook. So but the work that some of our staff are doing, they used to coach district implementation teams. We're now going to have people that have to go down to grade levels and multidisciplinary teams and talk about intensification. And we can't keep hiring treasure troves of people to do that. So we've got to have a way to train and coach them to be successful in their roles. It's really important.
Yeah, no, I love that you're thinking so much about sustainability and that you're thinking scale at the same time,
Yeah.
which, you think that the two would go together more often than they do in our thinking.
Yes.
I'm not complaining, it just is. Right. Agency alignment is the key. And I loved what Kristen said about that earlier. And like I said, if you can get agency alignment, if you can think about sustainability and scale, do all those things, then we're going to put you in charge of a small country. It's probably easier to do that. I did want to add just, I don't know, does anyone else have any questions or thoughts for the Michigan team? And I'm going to share a piece because I just wanted to point out that I thought this was a very complex topic. A lot of the things that Kim and Julie talked about, but they really made it concrete. I love how Kim shows her shirts, her things, that makes it so concrete to have something to show, right? We had a little bit of credibility there because there was the history that they brought in, right? And that the 4-H is also bringing some emotion. There were some stories shared. So I just wanted to share that the success model was certainly present in how our speakers shared their information today. Good, Mary agreed. I also want to plug, and this is not about Kim and Julie, but I know Kim was going to be putting together a proposal at some point. I'm going to put a link in the chat for proposals. We want to hear everyone's voices, and this is a great opportunity at the national meeting to do so because there's such a range, right? If you have 15 minutes to talk about a resource, great. If you want a whole presentation, great. If you just want to record yourself on a podcast, fantastic. But we've got lots of good opportunities. So I think we have from Paula Crawford. Thank you for sharing. You did an excellent job on this topic. I want to give my applause. It was so nice to hear from Kim and Julie again, and really make it nice and something that connected with all of you, I can tell.